have this conversation with you. I love your name, and I'm so super excited to learn more about you, and also for me as a tax expert, that's how I looked at you, because you have been doing this for a very long time, so you know the ups and downs, all the things that most companies we try to run away from because we don't want to deal with them. But to get started, I wanted to know what led you to open your own company, Hito LLC. Can you tell us what led you to this career path in general? Why did you decided I am going to be a tax expert?
Yeah, sure. So to begin with, why did I become tax expert? Is whenever I was little, my parents had construction company back in Japan, and back then, I thought I want to become a math professor. But as my parents CPA came to our house every month and sit down and talking through what they are doing for my parents' company. I was fascinated by that, and learning more and more about their profession. It was eye-opening, what accountants are. And he was really passionate about accounting and tax, and what they said, I still remember to this day. But understanding accounting is how to read the story about business and understanding businesses. So I was that's really cool. And from math, using math to interpersonal skill, I feel CPA or tax accountant might be a really good segue for me to start my career. So that's why I became CPA. But second question you asked was why did I open up my company? So I started my big career with Big Four accounting firm KPMG. When my mother got sick and they couldn't, it was in a busy season, so they couldn't accommodate me to just go back and forth Japan, LA. So it was very unfortunate, and I didn't want to leave. Having said that, I needed that flexibility, and same time I wanted to provide the professional workplace where people can integrate family and work life. So that was why I started my first company. And first company, I had a great success, and I had an exit back in 2016, and then 2017 I started this company called Hito LLC.
Well, that's amazing. What was the first company?
First company was tax CPA firm was as well. They do exactly the same thing as what I do now, and we are competitor, but we work a lot together. We collaborate still, but it was just our kind of how we want to grow the firm. We were a little bit different. When we say we, our partners and I were a little bit different. So it was just good for me to get out and then start what I'm passionate about and what my value is for the company and as person.
Exactly. Starting your own way, you can actually put your own value inside it and then build something that can be also valuable for other people.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I like it. So before starting your own, you work for other companies. So I know that you started this company with your partner, and then at the end you said, okay, well, I'm going to switch. I'm going to start my own. How was that experience for you to say that I'm not going to have any partner, but I'm going to start something completely on my own just for myself with no help? How was that journey for you?
So whenever I left previous company and my partner, we said goodbye to partnership, I actually didn't think I will go back into accounting. My other passion was I always did a lot of volunteering work, and I'm passionate about giving back and wanted to do early childhood or domestic violence. I wanted to support those organizations. So I actually moved to Spain and South Africa, following that passion.
Wow.
And yeah, I happened to be in the United States in 2017, waiting for United Nations to make decision, whether they're gonna hire me or not. So with that said, like, when my old clients and my friends finding out, like, I'm back in the US, like, I started like getting calls and getting clients. So it was like just one thing another. I didn't intend to start this company, but after being here like a year, I just decided like, this is what I really like to do, and I want to build another company and making like small impact to like, professionals and people coming to my life.
Absolutely. I think your friends make the decision for you.
Yeah.
So can you tell us about Hito LLC?
Yeah, Hito LLC, we are a tax consulting firm. We help companies reduce taxes. How do we do that? Is we utilize like tax credit, tax incentives. So a lot of people probably don't know what tax credit, tax incentive is. So like I will tell you a little bit about it. So federal and state government always incentivize type of activities, including like R&D, like research and development activities, or hiring employees, investing capital investment, or training employees. So there's a lot of governmental like program out there, which many taxpayer doesn't know. So when companies are like, going to growth or hiring people or anything like, you can think about in a business realm, we get pulled in by their CPAs or financial advisor or CFO and say, hey, what can we find for like, governmental services, like, governmental credits or incentive to like, put those like, investment back into their growth, company growth. So we help like, facilitate tax credit work and like, making sure our clients are compliant.
Wow. I'm gonna take you back again because this is very interesting because that's not things that businesses actually know about. They don't know these things because again, most businesses we try to run away from the IRS, not become IRS best friend, you know. So now let's go back to leverage the employee retention credit, which we call it ERC. So can you explain what is it really and how does it actually really work? How do you even get into something like that?
Yeah, so employee retention tax credit was came out from CARES Act during COVID to help companies like sustain their employees during like difficult time in COVID, right? So IRS said like if you are retaining employees from March 2020 to September 31st, like September 30th, 2021, and if you qualify, IRS gonna write a check for like up to $26,000 per employee. So how do you qualify for that, right? So there's two ways to qualify. First way is comparing gross receipt prior to COVID and after COVID. It's quarterly by quarterly, like, qualification. So let's say second quarter 2020, right after COVID, you had comparing to like, same quarter in 2019, you had like more than like 50% like, gross receipt drop, you would qualify. So 2020 compared to 2019, if you have 50% or more of gross receipt drop, you will qualify for ERC. And then for 2021, if you can show more than 20% gross receipt drop compared to 2019, which is like, previous to like COVID, you could qualify for that credit. So that's first way.
Okay. Go ahead. I'm
And
excited.
second way you can qualify is government said if you're affected by COVID governmental shutdown order in some fashion, whether it was partially shut down or fully shut down your operation. So there's two ways to qualify. Shutdown like rules, like, it's more subjective. So like, there's a lot of like guidance out there how to like navigate that and who to qualify. So a lot of like, let me give you like, one example, right? So one of the restaurant clients, they were affected by COVID governmental shutdown. So our clients like shut entire indoor dining during like COVID in California, they shut it down from March 2020 to like typically like, June of 2021. Having said that, they quickly was able to like, shift it to delivery model. So if you only compare the gross receipt, they actually did it well. However, the second portion is shutdown rule, right? So partial shutdown for like restaurant, like indoor dining, like restaurant like this. If indoor dining was like more than like, let's say 90% of business prior to COVID, but it was zero after COVID, they may qualify for that credit. So my clients, we help a lot of restaurants and like hospitality industry, and as well as doctor's office and so forth. If we can qualify either gross receipt or like, shut down either fully or partially, they could qualify up to $26,000 per employee. And this is crazy. I never seen this before, but IRS will actually write that check to you if you don't have enough tax to offset.
So should we be worried that they're gonna come back, say we borrow you this money, let's pay us back because we're making money now? Should we worried about that?
No, this is a tax credit. If you qualify, you are entitled to this tax credit.
And they're not gonna come back say you owe us back with interest.
No. Unless you do it incorrectly. If you do it correctly, no.
Gotcha. So what is a research and development tax credit, which is R&D?
Okay, so R&D is really fun. So this came out, like IRS enacted this law back in like 1980s to promote U.S. company to stay in the U.S. and do research activity in the U.S. soil instead of going to offshore. So what they said, and like IRS intentionally kept it very broad. So what IRS said was, if a company is developing or enhancing business product or process relying on the hard science, they may qualify for R&D tax credits.
Wow.
And then right now, about more than 30 states follow U.S. guideline or IRS guideline and provide some type of R&D tax credit on a state level as well. So go ahead.
Yes, no, go ahead. That's interesting.
Yeah, so a lot of clients, we get a call a lot of time and say, hey, we are not doing laboratory, experiment. Can we qualify? And I would say any company who are developing or enhancing their products or process, they may qualify. So we have a clients from biotech, pharmaceutical company, to manufacturing, to breweries, to financial services, healthcare services, you name it. And we have a lot of clients, who qualify for R&D tax credits.
So that is another way to keep the companies here and not going overseas, which will help them to provide more jobs to you, U.S. citizens?
Yes.
Huh. So how much money will they give? What is the highest level they will go with?
So R&D tax credit, there's no limit. The tax credit is based on W-2 wages, 65% of contractors' fee, and then supplies consumed during R&D. And then you take that qualified expense and typically we say just very high level, 10 to 15% of qualified expense could be your tax credit. So let's say you have $400,000 in qualified expenses, you could expect anywhere from probably $40,000 to $60,000 of tax credits, depends on actual study. And it's a dollar to dollar reduction to your taxes.
When you say tax credit, we're talking about they taking that money, you don't have to pay them, it's off your taxes, or they signing a check, say, here's the money, we're not going to ask you for a refund back.
So unfortunately, R&D tax credit is, for the federal side, R&D tax credit is not refundable. So if you have, let's say you have $40,000 tax credits, right? and let's say you have $20,000 with tax due, you can only offset $20,000, so you don't have to pay $20,000, and the remaining $20,000 of tax credit you can carry over to next year or following years.
Well, I guess that's better than nothing. We get the help. We don't have to pay the $20,000 to
Right.
them.
And the $20,000 you save, you can invest it back to your company, and whether you want to hire somebody, you want to make a improvement on process or procedure, or you want to innovate more. There's these tax credits are really government are incentivize company to invest in back so that you can do more innovation. You can hire more people and create jobs in America.
Absolutely. It's a great way to help, because at the end we open more jobs here, that's what we need.
Right.
We need more of that. So what type of businesses can benefit from your services? Would you say any type of business, or you have a niche?
Any type of businesses, different tax credit will have a different industry. So ERC, any companies could benefit. R&D, a lot of them are any company who are developing or doing innovation, they could qualify. So I'll say it's very broad in an industry agnostic.
Okay. And I know you provide the ERC, you help with the ERC, also R&D. What other services can Hito provide to businesses?
Sure. So we do a lot of state tax credits, and from New York, North Carolina, Arizona to California, we work with West Coast to East Coast. So we look at a couple of different things. So there's one is what's called statutory credits. What that means is if you do the specific activities, you qualify for tax credit. So ERC, R&D would be fitted in what's called statutory tax credits. And so we help those tax credit in the state level, anywhere in the country. So we look at, are you hiring employees? Are you investing capital in CapEx? And are you training employees? And we can come up with tailored tax credit and go apply for those with the state. And second and third one is what we call it more pre-approval or negotiate tax credit. So what that means is government typically has a guideline who would qualify for these tax credits, but what states are looking for is, are company threatening to leave the country, the states, or are they interested in coming to their states? So these type of tax credit is to incentivize people to bring business and people into that particular state. So as an example, we are working with SaaS company right now and negotiating tax credit with 3 different jurisdictions. They started their company after the COVID in 2020. So they never had a headquarters. Everybody worked from home. And as they're growing, they are okay, after COVID, we really need to set up headquarters and then have an office so that engineer can be in one place and collaborate and start building more and more features and software. So we are looking at 3 states right now and bringing in close to 75 employees next 5 years. So when they haven't made any investment or no commitment, we can go negotiate tax credit and say hey state, we are looking at those 3 or 5 states. What can you do for us? What type of program out there? So those are the stuff we do.
This is interesting. These are the things that women. I know I never think of it. I can actually go negotiate my. Wow. Yeah. I didn't know you can do that. I can negotiate if I want to bring my business to your state. That's interesting.
Yeah, and if you think about Tesla, if you think about Toyota, Texas receive tax credits, or different states provided different tax credits. That was one of the reasons they may move. that's not typically like tax credit is not final business like decision making stuff, but that's part of like their business decision.
That's the reason why they went to Texas and left California.
Yeah.
Interesting. Huh. What can I say? Elon Musk is smart. So pretty much when you also, I know that you also collaborate with CPAs, firms, and also lawyers. So can you explain how do you collaborate with them to actually help them and help their clients?
Yeah. So a lot of time we work with CPA and fractional CFO or like other accountants. So we are just supplemental to like their skill set. So why, right? We do not do tax returns. We don't do bookkeeping nor CFO services. So only thing our firm does is we have 9 people, and what we do is day in day out looking at tax credit and incentive opportunity for our clients, and figuring out how to apply, how to negotiate, how to identify those credits. And a lot of traditional CPA firm or accounting firm, they don't have a skill set sometimes, or they don't have like time to figure out, like, because if you think about tax returns, there's a 10,000 code section in IRS code section, and then like each state have like different like laws and regulations, right? So preparing tax return is a big deal, and like that's a whole different animal. So a lot of time, like those traditional CPA firm who does like tax return filing, they don't have the time or resources to like look at tax credit, tax incentive for their clients. So we typically partner and like work together to say, okay, what is your like clients doing? What can we offer, and where we can like supplement like their skill set. And lawyers, like typically we work with transactional lawyer or like IP lawyers, when they know like okay, oh, like certain like business transaction coming up, like they will like reach out and say, hey, these type of like deals, like can we get like tax credit, tax incentives? So there's a lot of like camaraderie. Like our company's motto is like, hey, let's create like the best team, so that we can work together with best of the best people, and we can learn from each other, and then like provide the best service for our clients.
So also that one thing I will think that you also kind of guide them and teach them the things that you know that they don't know when it's come to credit, which I will think they don't spend most of the time learning things like that either.
Yeah, absolutely. We just teach them, and like if more they know, our clients and our like partner CPAs and accountants know, like more we can get out, and more we can help them.
Absolutely. But you also provided training grants, and can you tell us how do you provide training grants and credits? Is it those trainings are you giving them to the like companies you work with, like CPAs and lawyers, or is it like you training the owner of this company, or the CEO of this company, or the CFO of that company?
So the training grants, like training grants or credits, like whenever I talk about it, like that's coming from the state government typically. So like for example, like California, they have a program called California Employee Training Panel, ETP for short. So any companies or any employees who are in California and paying payroll taxes every month or every payroll cycle, you're putting like, partial of your taxes into what's called ETP funds. So California created this program to like incentivize like, company who are putting effort, training their employees and, elevating their skill set. So the California's like ETP program is fantastic. If you are manufacturing, construction to like healthcare industry, if you're like training them from like basic skill to like let's say paramedic skill or like PCR skill, like you can apply for those before you start training, and then get like reimbursement back from like California for training employees.
But most people won't know that. Would you say that's where you come in with the training that you do?
Correct.
Cool. You are doing something like I never seen that before. That's like a niche. You niche it down so low. Even like you went all the way down to you eliminated everything you can possibly think of and go all the way down just to credit, which is something most of us we don't think about it. We really don't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really an interesting field, and I just love it, and I fell in love it, and like I've been doing this over 15 years.
Wow. That's a long
Yeah.
time. But I am curious to know, how do you negotiate credit?
I cannot go into too much like detail, but like there's a state government like typically has governmental office who negotiate those tax credit or help us like navigate that process. So if I go into like more like I need to talk about my clients, so that's why like I need to be careful. But there is a like help, and like you can go to typically like economic development department and find out how to negotiate or how to talk to those governmental officials, and then start the conversation. And oftentimes we get brought out because whenever company, my clients, like when they reach out to us, uh, only the executive or only few people know about those moves. So they don't want governmental officials to know, and they don't want their employees to know. So we will be like, in the middleman, and like, helping those facilitate those
Oh.
conversations.
So pretty much you kind of like the behind the scene person without them knowing you're actually there. Huh, cool.
Correct.
Interesting. So you at the same time you kind of educating them too because you have to tell them what to say, what not to say, how to act, and not not to act certain way.
Yeah, yeah. Our clients typically don't interact with like governmental official until like pretty like far along, and like we are in the process of like getting tax credit, tax incentives. But yes, we coach them, and like we make sure like all of us align from like governmental official to us to like our clients, because they put a lot of they meaning like governments like put a lot of like time and effort, try to understand our clients like businesses, and how is like our economic model works, and what's our financial model work, and like um so that we can be aligned, and like this is not just like negotiation, this is a partnership with company and the government.
So do you work with only like I would say big corporation, million dollar companies, or do you work with small businesses as well?
We work a lot with like small to mid-sized businesses. Typically, like any company from like 10 employees up to like thousands and
Right.
thousands of employees.
Okay. And I know starting a business for me as a woman in business, it was a lot of challenges that I have to face when you're starting it. It's a lot. It's just a lot to deal with, from family to business to everything else that's on earth. So, what were the challenges that you faced, and how did you overcome them?
So earlier in a career, I think I struggled as a woman and also as a foreigner. And I felt like I had to act in a certain way. And if you look at like accounting and finance like profession, a lot of executive or like people were like men. So I probably like acted as like somebody I felt like perceived like I should do. However, like, whenever like I had like first business, I quickly like, realized like I need to be who I am, and like, I want to do what I love to do with whom I love to do it. And whenever I realized that, and like, I'm comfortable with my own skin, I think I attracted much different like businesses and clients and also employees. And only thing like I can share is like, sometimes it's difficult, but being yourself and like, be open to like, get criticized or like, be accepted who you are. And I think that goes a long way.
Absolutely, and I totally can understand where you're coming from. So we're both in the same shoes here. It's difficult. It's difficult, but I think like what you said that I agree. It's you coming to a decision that this is me. Take it or leave it. This is me. It's not going to change because I am who I am. And once you can do that, everything else become easy, a lot easier.
I agree.
So what's next for you and Hito? Where do you see yourself in the company?
Yeah, so more and more, like as my team is growing, and I have to say, my team is amazing. Uh, they take responsibility, ownership, and they're always involved and thinking about strategically alongside of me. So my role has been changing a lot last year, and I need to take on more of business owner, type of work. So we are thinking about hiring more tax accountants from Big Four accounting firm and talented lawyers who can help us grow and get to there. And I'll probably slowly next 5 years, I will slowly transition to actually doing the client work to more strategically thinking about where is the company want to go and how to scale and how to make our company more efficient.
I think that what you are doing, no matter where you take it, is going to be successful because what you are doing is not something everybody else is doing. It's unique, it's different, and
Mm-hmm.
then it's also something that can help a lot of businesses grow. So we need that.
Yes. Yeah. We have a small knit of competitors, we are really good friends with and we collaborate a lot. And we always talk about we are competitors, but we are educator as a combination. And because as you said, a lot of business still don't know. For example, employee retention tax credit. There was a study maybe 6 months ago came out. Only 20%, less than 20% of the businesses are who entitled to ERC were taking advantage of ERC. And that was one of the reasons that ERC was eliminated 3 months before, 3 months earlier than it was supposed to expire.
Because people wasn't taking advantage of it, but the reason why they didn't know
Correct.
it exists. If you don't know it exists, how do you
Correct.
take advantage of something?
Right.
And also, I will think that also on a state level too, it's an issue because not everyone in the state will know because that's not something the state advertising. You don't see it in TV. We have tax
Mm-hmm.
credit, come get it. You can negotiate with us. Then that's something they actually advertise, so you don't know these things. So if
Yeah.
businesses don't meet with someone like you or a CPA that knows these things, they will never really take advantage of them because they don't know.
Right. And I will just say it like this, right? A lot of business owners or people, they say, I have a CPA. Why do I need you? And I get that question all the time.
Oh,
And I love to give you analogy of medical doctor, right? So when you're sick, you may go to your family doctor. But let's say if you have freckle, you don't probably go to your family doctor, you go to dermatologist. Let's
mm-hmm.
say you have pain in your chest, either you go to emergency room or you go to cardiologist. And when you have a baby, you don't go to family doctor. You typically go to pediatrician. So medical profession, there are a lot of specialty, right? Similar in tax world, tax is so complex from income tax, payroll taxes to sales and use tax, transactional tax. So I think general public needs to understand a lot of people in the tax world are specialists. So if you only have family doctor, which is traditional CPA, you're probably not taking advantage of a lot of stuff who specialize in that area. So think about how to build that firm or how to build a team so that you are surrounded by those people who are collaborating and then giving you proactive advice and say, hey, what are you doing in your business? How can we help you?
Exactly. So I love the way you explain it because it makes a lot of sense when you put it down, when you put it down that way. So would you say that, let's say a company, can they work with you where when things become available, where you feel like, hey, this company can beneficial with that. Let me give them a call that can they work with you in a way like that? Or is it somewhere like they just call you, said, hey, can you help me? And it's a one-time thing and you're done.
No, typically, once we get involved, we have quarterly meeting, depend on the size of the clients, but quarterly meeting or annual meeting or biannual meeting, and then get company update, because for us to do a good job in the tax credit tax incentive world, we need to know where the company is going. Are they hiring in the future? Are they investing? Are they moving out of the states, or are they staying, or what's their plan? We need to understand everything to say, okay, there might be tax credit opportunities. So when we work with clients, we are always looking at okay, are they really comfortable talking to us and sharing confidential information? Are they gonna take time and sit down and educate us about their company and what's happening, so that we can help them? So those are the type of people we typically love to work with and look for as a client.
But I have a question for you. You probably will not like it. I like how you got so serious when I said that. Really? But
I love those uncomfortable questions.
what do you work with them? It's like when you hire. I'm gonna go with an example with you, just like you gave me one earlier. If I want to hire work with a lawyer, it's a retainer where I give an amount of fee every single month. It's pretty much the same as with an accounting, a CPA. You work with them, it's a retainer of certain amount of money every single month. So do you work with a company the same way? It's where you work with them in a retainer every single month, where you kind of like a part of the teams every single time.
Different way we work. Number one is when people are interested, they can call us and we will meet with you and do free analysis up front. And during that time, we will have a lot of conversation. Is this that are we the good match to work with us? Because when we onboard our clients, we are looking at long-term relationship, not just short-term. So that's really important to us. Once they decided to work with us, there's a couple of ways we typically work. A lot of tax credits we do on a success fee basis. So let's say if they get tax credit of 100,000, they don't have to pay us till they get money back from government. Other way, typically just normal consulting work, just advising them on the tax credit tax incentive, what is available, and their CPA might be taking care of them. We do fixed fee or hourly fee basis.
Okay, I like it. That sounds reasonable. We can deal with that. I really enjoy. I love really what you are doing. It's interesting. Even reading about your company, reading about you, it was just like, wow, she's doing that. That's really cool. And one thing I talking to you that I like the most is the fact that you said you talk with your competition. It's like, really? That I don't hear that too often when someone meet with their competition and share information and educate one another. Usually women want to run away from the competition. And one thing that I always tell to people is that I am competing with myself. I'm not competing with anyone. When I meet another woman, I'm learning something new. So I usually try to be quiet and listen a lot more, because you are educating me, and for that it's valuable to me. It's not competition. We're not competing. It's just we're sharing information, we're learning from one another. But from other women, usually I don't get the same answer. Usually they don't want to share. They don't want to talk about what they're doing because they feel like you're going to steal it. So when you say that you meet with your competition, and I was like, really? That's cool.
Yeah, maybe this is a very unique industry, but we are such a small group of people. I say maybe there's 100, 200 smaller company like us. We collaborate, we share information together, And like, if we get IRS audits or state audits, like, I can pick up the phone and like, talk to my client, my competitors. And I always learn new thing. And like, I believe in like, what more you give, more it comes back to you. And I cannot say enough about like, my competitors, like, I have a close relationship. They're amazing people. We do a lot of business together. And without them, like, I am not who I am today.
Absolutely. Thank you. It's great to hear that from another woman. I appreciate that. As a successful businesswoman, and I will call you myself an expert on tax credit because that's who you are. And what is your advice for to female founders just starting out?
Be yourself, put your head down, work hard, but don't forget about big picture and bright future.
I love it. Simple. And then it's describe everything else. Oh my goodness. Thank you, Yuko, for being here with us, and thank you for the opportunity to have this conversation with you. I learned so much from just listening to you talking. It's amazing how much you can learn in just 40 minutes. And I appreciate you for what you are doing, for looking out for businesses, and also for, I guess, helping other women out there. It's important that we continue to do that.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Like, this was like amazing opportunity, and like I really enjoyed talking to you.